This podcast is part of the Gonna Geek Network. The opinions expressed may not represent other podcasts or affiliates of Gonna Geek. Check out more podcasts at GonnaGeek.com and get ready because geekness starts in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Arthouse Legends, where high art and geek culture collide. This is the MovieDude Eric, and yes, I will be a free man in the morning, and along with me are...
This is Kent, and, growing up in the deep south, Mama used to say, if you not got anything to say during the intro, just don't say it.
Words to live by, I have to say.
Yes.
And this is John O. Lobster, the traveling lobster, riding the rails in the crockpot o' life here. This episode of Arthouse Legends is brought to you by Lobster mattresses. If you can't sleep on a Lobster mattress, listen to Arthouse Legends. We'll put you right into dreamland.
Well, we hope we don't put you in the dreamland. Jeez, go.
This episode, we're discussing A Face in the Crowd, starring Andy Griffith, Patricia Neal, Anthony Franciosa, Walter Matthau, Lee Remick, and directed by Elia Kazan. Gentlemen,
Shazam!
I couldn't have picked a better movie for this election year if I tried. And understand, I have been dying to talk about this film for nearly 10 years now.
This film feels to me like I don't think it necessarily was critically adored when it came out because it probably felt a little too much like science fiction or something. Like everyone's like, "Oh, this
it was the 1950s
it's so unrealistic
version of Idiocracy.
It's so unrealistic. This will never happen." And Idiocracy, I think, is another one that 10 years on, people are like, "Oh shit!" Like that actually happened. And this too, and I will argue later in the podcast that it pulled its punch, that this film is bizarrely prophetic in terms of its reading of what a popular individual or like populist individual can accomplish just by force of personality and I guess too, there's, again, I don't want to say like it's just like Hitler, but a lot of times you look at Nazi Germany and the rise of Adolf Hitler and you can draw these parallels and everybody's like, yeah, but that could never happen. There's no way that somebody could rise to political prominence just based off like a cult of personality. And it's weird how this film and Idiocracy to an extent, I think, is commenting on different things, but both of them I think have parallels in the 2016 presidential election.
Not exactly Hitler. This thing was actually more towards McCarthy, as all things in the 50s, to be honest. But this is actually quite interesting because of who is making this movie. The two individuals that get the biggest credit for the creation of this film are its screenwriter, Bud Schulberg, who actually wrote the short story and then the screenplay for this film, and the director, Elia Kazan. Out of curiosity, are you familiar with Elia Kazan's history up to this particular point, or have you seen any of his other work?
I wasn't familiar, really, and then I started watching the special features where they talked about his appearance before House Un-American Committee.
Mm-hmm. Want to talk about it for a bit?
It's just always painful to talk about the House Un-American Activities Committee because it was the Salem witch trial.
Yeah.
Right.
Which we've talked about, we haven't talked about, but has been talked about for remade as The Crucible and everything else. It's just, all you had to do was ruin somebody, was say, hey, are you a communist, in front of a congressional hearing, and you were ruined.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Period. You didn't even have to answer. You were just ruined by him going, let me ask the question of power. Right. You're dead.
Well, and like any kind of Star Chamber or whatever kind of event or period in history, there's always an influence on art. And whether it's influencing artists like Dalton Trumbo, who is a famous screenwriter who was blacklisted, and that was just made into a movie recently, right? Mm-hmm. His story with Bryan Cranston. Yep. Or actors, actresses, people involved in entertainment. And really, it usually settles on people that are trying to speak truth to power in art, or using the mouthpiece of cinema to critique or criticize those in power. And this is kind of like an interesting take on it, because it doesn't go straight politics.
Well,
there is a political candidate involved in the film, but it's not like Lonesome Rhodes himself is running for office. He's more seen as an influencer or a kingmaker in politics because he's so popular as an entertainer.
Well, before we get into the movie itself, there's actually important aspects of Elia Kazan's life that influences this particular film and his work up to this particular point. You have to understand that Elia Kazan has always been a filmmaker of conscience. Most of his films deal with extremely sensitive subjects, from his more earlier work such as Gentleman's Agreement, all the way up until the point where he was before the House of Un-American Committee. The thing is that Kazan, unlike other people before the committee, actually named names. And that was one of the reasons why he was able to work after he had been in front of the committee, whereas a lot of his contemporaries didn't, like Dalton Trumbo. In fact, when Elia Kazan was given his Honorary Academy Award in 1999, you can actually go back to the video of this. Half of the people there didn't stand up and applaud him. They sat down and stayed completely silent, including Steven Spielberg and others, Nick Nolte. There are a few others. If you want, you can go back to that video. And that always surprised me, because normally you just see this complete adoration, even if you don't like the person, because, politics, right? But there were people who outright, a majority, or half of them, refused to stand up and applaud for him. And I always found that kind of interesting. And then, of course, when I heard what he did, I kind of kept away from watching his movies because, filthy person, telling, talking to Joe McCarthy. And then I decided to watch his work. And I started where everyone starts off, which was the film he made after his time in front of the committee, which was On the Waterfront. And On the Waterfront is an American classic. It is what brought us Marlon Brando. Actually, Elia Kazan was the person who also brought us James Dean with East of Eden, just before, he did that little thing about a rebel and some causes and stuff. Elia Kazan changed how we looked at movies. And he did it before, but he especially did it after, because he did movies about conscience on a level that other filmmakers just refused to do. And Facing the Crowd, in my opinion, is possibly one of his most startling and most just chilling films that he's ever made. And when you see his other films, you'll understand just how much of a compliment that is, because he can go into some very deep territory. But let's talk about this film, because this is a beast. Now, were you familiar with this film prior to going into this film, or what did you know about this film?
Only that you love it. That's all I knew about it, which is very odd because, my parents are big Andy Griffith fans, and they never mentioned this film.
Are you going to watch Mayberry the same way again after seeing this movie? Are you not going to be hearing,
that?
ha!
understanding that he is an actor. Andy Griffith is an actor, and yes, he can do multiple parts. I can separate them and watch them in different ways.
At what point do you think, oh, so that's what he did after he became a small town sheriff?
Yeah.
He realized he had the
changed
taste
his
for power.
name and
he
kind
cleaned
of
up a little bit.
Well, he had to have mellowed a lot more.
So what does that make Barney? Just saying.
One of the other drifters.
That's
that
part.
He knew.
That's part of the perfect camouflage. Is he looks competent compared to a bumbling idiot, so he just needs to have a bumbling idiot around that when things get messed up, he can be like, well, obviously.
The plot twist is that Barney is the one that actually understands the bureaucracy and the paperwork.
Don't you mean Beanie?
Uh-huh.
Sorry, it's just a couple of letters. You just switch them around.
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, both are short.
I had never heard of this film until you brought up doing it on the show, and I kind of love this movie now, and I wish I had watched it sooner so I could make more references to it when I'm talking to people about the election. But I found an article in Washington Post that was written back in February that draws the parallels, but I don't remember seeing that one circulate. So I feel like this is a film that's really, really ripe for a rediscovery.
Well, actually, it is becoming more of a rediscovery. This film actually took off on the boards on Reddit and IMDb and Amazon after, especially during this election campaign. There's a lot of people that are coming around to this film after the whole Trump thing came to be a thing. And quite honestly, when I saw this 10 years ago, I never would have thought that there would have been a candidate that would be as bombastic as what we would get in this particular film, or some personality. But for me, it was Glenn Beck at the time. When I saw this film, I had connotations of Fox News.
I was going to say, I was also getting a Glenn Beck vibe from this film. A little more than I was getting a Trump vibe, but knowing Beck's background, I was definitely getting that vibe.
It's funny because part of the message of the film is about elevating an everyday person to kind of the level of cultural phenomenon, right? It's about the everyman becoming the cultural touchstone and reaching celebrity status. And we've seen that happen sometimes where you've had someone who from complete obscurity has become a national sensation or international sensation. And usually it's based on a performance or something that they gave. I got a lot of like American Idol vibe from it, where it's about not just the person and their singing ability, but how American Idol and a lot of reality shows package their story. So you get the backstory of the person who grew up and, small town America, and these were their hardships and their struggles and, the sacrifices that their families made or so on. So you get this whole backstory of their lives. And then also you kind of have the message of their music and something that kind of cuts across all the noise. And this is kind of that story. It's like the title says, it's a face in the crowd and kind of elevating somebody. But then it's also this twist on what someone who craves that, what that says about someone who craves that kind of attention and that kind of power, and then what they do with it. And so the freaky thing about this, and I'll get off the Trump bandwagon, but the obsession over ratings, if you've done any kind of reading about what kind of drives Donald Trump as an individual. He's really obsessed with the ratings of his shows and getting recognized for being the top of the reality TV, or like getting an Emmy or something like that. Like that really drives him. And there's a lot of stuff being said about the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner where Donald Trump got roasted a little bit, being the moment that he decided to run for president. And like almost as an answer to that kind of ribbing that he got, has now done this entire campaign almost as a screw you to like prove that he can. And again, I don't want to go too much into this, but you look at a character like Lonesome Rhodes, who has no interest originally in any of this, but once he gets a taste of it, he wants more and he wants more and he wants more. And then that becomes his frame of existence. And then seeing it crumble, I'm going to come back to Trump at the end, but it's interesting just kind of like making that connection to the election and seeing how it turns out at the end. But we'll talk about the movie.
Yeah, let's talk about the movie because there's a lot about this movie and there's a lot of stuff that's happening. And in the film in itself, even without the current events kind of playing into it, there's a lot here. I love how it basically starts off with Patricia Neal, who I gotta say is the silent power behind this film. You're gonna have a lot of very bombastic individuals. I think that she is the grounding for this film. And
well, technically at the beginning they list Andy Griffith and Patricia Neal as co-stars.
Well, yeah,
they don't say starring.
Well, that's because Patricia Neal before this was the biggest star. She this was coming right off of High Noon. She had Andy Griffith was a stand-up comedian and was just currently doing his first stint on Broadway before he did this particular film. He wasn't at all, he had never done anything before in his life, and it was only because Andy Griffith caught the attention of the director, who he himself, a Broadway director as well, saw something very bombastic that he knew that this was going to be the guy that he wanted. And yeah, but before we get to talking about Andy Griffith, I really want to talk about Patricia Neal right quick.
Yeah.
Because I love how she is the control, right? Even though that she's not the every person, she is kind of the person who brings Lonesome to power. She's the one that kind of sticks by him. We kind of see him through her, even though that she kind of disappears from the film from times to her, to her belief, in all honesty.
She's the initial media contact.
Yeah.
That will grow him.
But she's also but she's doing NPR work at this point, right? This is Ira Glass work that she's doing, facing the crowd
It's not even Ira Glass work. It sounds like one of his lackeys. I'm sorry to call any of Ira Glass's employees lackeys.
It's a different time in American radio too, where regional radio was a much bigger deal. You didn't have Clear Channel and all these other like nationally cookie cutter broadcast radio stations. So regional radio was more of a thing, and this was a feature on their radio station where they went around and recorded folk music and everyday people, and it wasn't really like a Star Search thing, because I don't think they were out to like find the next big act. It was more of just a popular. It's almost like what StoryCorps does. I don't know if you've listened on NPR, where they go around and just record people's stories and kind of archive them and do stuff like that. It's not even about like, I think, fame, but this individual becomes so popular just based off that first appearance that they say, well, why don't we try him out? Why don't we give him a morning slot when not a lot of people maybe are listening to the radio or they're just having breakfast or whatever. And
it's because know that southern Arkansas has a massive drive time.
Hey, you could take your radio out to your tractor. Well, actually, no, you couldn't at this time. But you could, in theory.
No, I don't think
you have breakfast at the table before you go out.
Point. I think it was all plug-in.
Yeah, I mean, they had batteries, just not. The radio wasn't portable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
And I don't know any farmer that would put a fucking radio in their tractor.
Today, every day, but back then, no.
Well, hopefully we have some people listening to our podcast on their tractors or however they're getting around.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not just people trying to go to sleep.
If you are in fact listening to us on your tractor, take a selfie and then put it onto our Twitter page at Arthouse Legends.
Let us know.
Hashtag
Arthouse
or
Facebook
on tractor.
Page. Yeah.
Arthouse tractor.
Oh my God, that would be awesome. All right. So, she's doing her show from the local lockup.
Her uncle's radio station too, right? Like I think they make that point.
Yeah, they make it that but she's practically running the thing. From what it sounds like, he does he does kind of all of the big decisions and keeping it up running, but she's the one that's basically getting programming. I love how they set it up that this is just after the 4th of July. Because there's always a good roundup of people because people got to be drinking on the 4th of July.
Oh yeah.
Also,
so you arrest all these people who are drunk.
The American way.
Yeah. And when you have drinking in rural areas, that there's always that drunken disorderly. But is
that the most civil jail you have ever seen? Because nobody seems to really be locked up. Well, it's one big open room.
It's a small town. It's not exactly like Chicago.
It's also
even in
segregated.
small town, you'd have at least like a small cell.
I mean, this is also probably like the drunk tank, so
probably
if you were in for some sort of like violent crime or something, they might lock you up separately. But this is the drunk tank, and then you also have you see that it's segregated because you have a couple people in the other side that kind of connects to it.
Yeah, but at least they get to converse, and the drunks are pretty cordial with one another, despite any differences between them. I love how they introduced Lonesome Rhodes. Andy Griffith man, it's a really strong impression, that they kick him awake. He's, he does this whole opening thing. He makes this big production. I love his energy in this, right? I mean, he just comes right out, gives these kind of eloquent, almost Will Rogers-esque, monologue. He plays on the guitar a little bit. Although if you pay attention to what he's saying, basically it's all just kind of mishmash. It makes absolutely no sense when you try to put it all together. But basically it's just him warming up, right? And
also very clearly not actually playing the guitar.
Yeah. Oh no, no. Actually, Andy Griffith does play guitar.
Well, I mean, he may now, but he definitely wasn't playing it in those scenes because you never actually see his hands on the guitar. The camera's always framed above it.
Yeah, well, the reason for that was they were wanting to focus entirely on his face. They wanted to center it on his face. If you'll notice, whenever we see Lonesome, from the beginning, it's focused on his face, and as we get further, after he becomes more powerful, his hands become more important. Which I think is kind of interesting.
They become larger as he becomes more important?
Maybe.
There's nothing to worry about, I assure you.
Yes.
You know what they say.
But I especially love his laugh. That laugh. That is...
You love his laugh or you fear his laugh?
I love it. Well, I love it as a character thing because that laugh is bombastic. It's it sets you up for understanding kind of a bit of who this character is. He's a larger than life type. I love how he says it later on about how he does everything. He does everything at full speed. He doesn't he doesn't tone down. It just sets up such a fascinating character, considering just how this could be caricature, right? This could easily fall straight into the pitfalls of eye rolling, just not believing anything about this character as a character. Obviously, the more I think about it, I don't think he's ever said a true thing in the entire movie at all. I mean, the stuff that he admits to, okay, but...
No, I think of one true thing he said. The first thing I noticed about her was, and the second thing I noticed about her was... That was probably all true.
Yeah.
That was true. It's sexism.
Again, yeah, I don't want to go...
Objectionism? Objectifying?
Well, there is definitely kind of...
He's constantly trading in women for the younger model.
That's true. Again, these are definitely things, but that's for all things, though. He isn't, he'll do the same thing for men, too. It's equal opportunity. I think he just uses everybody. He's a sociopath.
But he doesn't marry them or propose to them.
He's a genuine sociopath, right?
Also true.
I mean, all he thinks about is what he can get out of somebody. It's all about what they're going to give him. I mean, right from almost the first thing he says is, what's in it for me, myself, and I? That's all he's really out for. Even when he does something that looks like it's, that looks on the surface as being, something nice, it's for some benefit. There's never a moment that he's not doing something that is to benefit himself. Right?
Yeah.
Well,
I can't think of any.
There's kind of there's a combination of, yes, he's always looking out for himself. Sometimes that can be self-destructive when his ego gets in the way. So he can't back down. He can't kind of...
I don't think he knows how to back down. I think that
he doesn't. Humility's not really in his vocabulary.
He's a shark. He has
it's
to
not
keep
in his
moving
repertoire.
Forward. He has to keep
and
looking
and
forward.
eventually
He can't look to the side.
And eventually that becomes his downfall, right? I mean, he gets to the point where he can't obviously handle criticism or people giving him advice and saying, look, here's what you need to do for us, or else, this really isn't going to work out. It becomes his greatest weakness.
I love how he actually foreshadows his own downfall with his story about Uncle Hurry. Always moving on to the next thing, not really paying attention to where he is. What happens at the end? He doesn't pay attention to what he's doing or what's going on. And so he hurries right on out and right into his downfall or elevator or, metaphor. Sorry.
Right into his metaphorical grave, yeah.
But it was foreshadowed. It actually foreshadowed stuff early on in the film, stuff that'll happen later on, which I thought was kind of interesting in that sense. But, oh my God, Andy Griffith. I mean, I have grown up with Andy Griffith as Sheriff Andy, Matlock. He's always been kind of that father figure of sorts, for kids of...
Grandfather figure.
Well, now, but the thing is that, he always kind of came off as, TV's great dad. I mean, I think he was even on the top 10 list of
TV dads.
TV dads.
Yeah.
I mean, right next to Cliff Huxtable. Oh boy.
Oh yeah.
Well, thankfully, Andy Griffith was actually the sweet guy that apparently the big rant at the end of the film, they had to get him drunk to do it because he just wouldn't go far enough.
I could see it. Actually,
it was that they had to keep downing him to the point where he almost got to the point where they couldn't understand what he was saying, so they told him to sniff the cork. on the second day. But it was, but yeah, he is such a sweetheart, and nothing at all like this character, which apparently kind of, he almost had a situation kind of in the same way that Heath Ledger did, where he had actually got himself so worked up over this film that it took a long time for him to get brought down.
Yeah,
apparently
to get back to center.
He tried to get in character and stay in character, and
so
he had to apologize kind of later because he was like, "I was an asshole to everybody on set."
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'm gonna.
So he pulled a Leto and.
But apologized afterwards.
No,
once I'm out of it.
I'm
sorry,
just going to say this, and I'm just going to get it out right now. Academy, what the fuck? I'm sorry.
No
this
love
is
for
one
this
of the best performances of all time. This would be on my top 10 list of greatest performances of all time. Andy Griffith here does something that very few actors do ever in film. He does here.
Yeah.
Because
and he didn't get a fucking nomination.
Only recently have we seen actors like Johnny Depp and Alec Baldwin do similar work.
Even then, they don't. The thing is that Andy Griffith goes so completely. He is so willing to put himself out there in a level of bombacity, saying things that, again, only a TV game show host would ever truly say. No, I'm just saying. But the thing is that he just goes for broke and he sells it. He sells it just like he sells that Vitajax bullshit. I'm sorry. He just, That
was great product.
That ad in the middle of the film for the Vitajax.
The soft sell. The hard sell. I love it.
No, believe it or not, Bud Shulman and Elia Kazan went to Madison Avenue, the Mad Men of the time, and learned how to sell in order to make this movie. And if you notice, they do all kinds of sell. You see the hard and soft sells.
There's some good commercials.
He said our research shows that we need to use words like vigor and there was something else too. And they're like very kind of like stuffy language. And that's not what sells. Sex sells. We know this. So they had to make it almost
they had to turn the pig into a wolf.
I bought my boyfriend a year's supply.
10 years supply, which is only 100 pills. If you look at the label, it's only 100. It's like, that's a 10-year supply. Yeah.
That was, but I
that was bizarre.
I love that entire ad. I love how it's both surreal, yet it feels like, I mean, especially if you watch like ads today, it feels almost
like a modern
the exact
ad.
same thing.
Yeah. And I'm still like, what was that stuff supposed to do?
It's Viagra.
It's Vitajax.
It kind of sounded like it was an energy product, but then it went all sexual.
It's like a multivitamin or something like that.
It's Viagra mixed with Flintstones.
They were trying to sell kind of like 5 Hour Energy, and Lonesome turned it into Viagra.
Yeah.
No, they were trying to sell it like Centrum Silver, and he turned it into Red Bull. It gives you wings.
Or something like that. I don't know if you call it wings.
And a 10-hour erection, apparently.
Yes.
But, I mean, but seriously though,
don't take my word for it. And honestly, right? No presidential candidate has ever lent their name to any kind of pharmaceutical like that, right? I mean,
no, just other products that fail
would never happen
horribly and don't work as advertised.
No, I mean, Bob. You don't get that. Bob Dole, Viagra.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
He was. But that was after he had already lost the election.
Yeah, that was
after the campaign.
Yes.
I mean, it was. And he apparently was one of the test subjects for it. Yes. He had volunteered as a test subject. So I'll defend him on that. He was.
God bless you, sir.
He could have died. No, actually, this whole product The whole
he would have died with a smile on his face.
The whole Viagra backstory was they were trying to do a heart attack drug.
I love how they defend the fact that they could sell this by, will this kill you? Well, no.
No.
But it won't do anything.
Yeah. Well, that's...
It's too baby
so aspirin. Say much. That is better than some other stuff.
It's a placebo. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a placebo, and it's being sold on the strength of the marketing.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's something for him to hitch his name to. And I think it fits more in his wheelhouse. I don't think selling mattresses is really his style, but give him something like Vitajex, and he's good all the way to the bank.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's amazing how, especially when we see, where he came from. He starts off with taunting the local sheriff about becoming the dog catcher instead of the mayor. And then, of course, he moves on to Memphis and the mattress guy who... Again, this is the same thing that David Letterman would do back in the 70s, where, you taunt NBC and then, only just sell NBC even more, because...
Well, this is classic shock jock. Like, hey, with, hey, why don't we just put a bunch of dogs over at the mayor candidate's house?
You don't even have to. All you have to do is just say, well, if you didn't bring some dogs that you don't like, or you bring them over to... the sheriff, let him deal with those. And it works, and you can tell that he feels very comfortable. And then of course, when we see him, when he goes to Memphis and he brings the lady whose house is burned down, right? Again, it looks like it's something so kind and nice, but what he's really doing is he's planting roots of power. He
immediately gets the black community on his side, because that line that they give, hey, that's something you don't see. That's one of ours. Yeah, that's one of ours. We never see that.
It's a power move, and
you don't see that.
And
on
it
TV,
shows.
So.
Well, and it shows the viability of that audience as a market demographic, because what does he get them to send? Their money, and it's showing that. If they will open their pocketbooks to help out some poor lady from the street, what will they do when you're selling them a product and making them believe that they need it? Mm-hmm. They have the income to spend.
Well, I mean, he almost focuses entirely on women at the beginning. I mean, on his first day of the radio, what is he doing? He's talking about the plight of housewives. They're the ones that send him the telegraphs. You seem to know so much about us women and all the things that we do. He knows his audience. He knows who's staying home and listening to the radio. He knows who he should be targeting with every show that he does, because when he does a morning show, he's targeting to women. When he goes prime time, he's targeting men. You notice that? It's very interesting.
Well, it's the whole James Bond, women want him, men want to be him. Mm-hmm. So he's selling both. He's selling his,
look at the Cracker Barrel. What part of the Cracker
ladies.
Barrel is something that women would be interested in? The Cracker Barrel is basically trying to show plain folksiness.
They're still interested in him because he's also still like a sex symbol. He represents kind of this...
rural masculinity?
Yeah, well, not almost, like rural masculinity, but like he's a rebel. He's telling it like it is. He says, he means what he says.
He's outside the belt.
Yeah. And but also kind of like
maverick?
Yeah. I don't want to I don't want to keep digging this hole, but I'm sorry, that's exactly what it is. He's successful in business. He's basically a 1%er now, but he's still appealing to blue collar folks by making him
because that's his
think
power.
That they've got
his
something
the blue
that
collar.
they've got something in common. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, he even outright says it at the end of the film. That as long as he can keep selling them what they want to hear. And basically, what is he doing? He's basically saying, "Look, you matter. The people that are the other 1%ers, the others, they just see you as nobodies. I pay attention to you. I care about you. Listen to me. I
feel your pain."
And
he also makes a point about how he could go out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and they would still love him.
Sorry, I think you're thinking about someone else.
Yeah, well, Andy Griffith's character doesn't use those exact words, but it's something very, very similar that he says.
No, he does definitely show an arrogance about himself. But again, that's his confidence. Let's be honest here; it is very magnetic. Even if you don't like him, you have to admire him and the balls on him. Even his critics, Walter Matthau. I think he puts it best. It's like, you got to admit, it's, you might hate the shit that he shovels, but man, does he shovel it well. He is a true blue performer. He definitely understands how to sell his product. He definitely understands how to sell to his audience. And he just knows the right way to get people to do what he wants them to. And so when he gets that backing from the general, and he has that influence, and he's becoming kind of a figure of politics, going from entertainment to politics. Wow, who could have thought that so recently, how politics and entertainment just seem to intertwine?
Well, it's not even recent. I mean, could you imagine if
an actor became president?
Well, I was going to say, instead of casting Andy Griffith, what if you cast another, maybe even more famous actor known for doing Westerns?
John Wayne?
No, Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, if he were. Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine?
And his vice president, Jerry Lewis, don't forget.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, again, art, politics, entertainment, history, it all kind of interweaves in a weird way in this film, but also in reality happens. It does. And again, Ronald Reagan was an actor who became president. We have a businessman who went into entertainment, built a brand, and is now running on that brand for president. It's bizarre, right? I mean, you can't say that. Well, okay. So one of the things that I love about America, and one of the things that I think is great about the way the American democracy works, is the idea that anyone can become president, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm humming Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Yeah.
About America.
Let's do right. So we'll have our little patriotic music while I say this, but is the idea that anybody can become president. You can start from whatever your origins are and rise to the highest office in the land. And that's kind of the cool thing about America. But then there's also that thing of where, but that doesn't mean just because everyone could or anyone could doesn't mean everyone should. And there's people that you don't necessarily want to have given that much power, or in the case of Lonesome Rhodes, influencing others with that much power. And he kind of takes it like he's running for president when he backs the senator, because he gets the promise of a cabinet position.
Minister of Morality, or I'm sorry.
Yeah, National Morale
Officer. Yeah. Which sounds like, just a propaganda piece.
Is cool,
so,
but then you realize that's what Neelix's job was on Voyager. He was
but he could be. He didn't have almost the power of life and death. You create a cabinet position.
Paris.
Let's also
I don't think that people were going to hoist Paris up on pitchforks and send him out.
They made it sound like National Morale Officer was a cabinet position.
No, it is a cabinet position. He said, I'll be part of the cabinet.
That means in line for the presidency. Neelix is not in line for the presidency. Every Starfleet officer would have to die on Voyager, including the ensigns. In fact, the specialists who aren't even officers would have to be dead first. that says something there. It's like, nope, totally different. So, okay, I geeked out there too much.
Now I have Felix doing the Captain Phillips. I'm the captain now.
I am the captain. Yeah, no. I am Captain Neelix. Like, no, go away.
Well, they did do the episode where I think it was the Doctor had the fantasy hologram program where he became president.
Yep.
Well,
or captain, rather. Sorry. Not
that they actually made a tactical program for that where he could assume command.
Yep.
Nice.
Yes, and he actually defeated an enemy with it.
Let's get back to...
Okay. Sorry.
There's always room to talk about
Let's get back to something more realistic. Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Wait, that's scary.
Well, yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about the sort of what are the politics of Lonesome Rhodes. And so we're talking about this film, and we're talking about
it's the politics of me, myself, and I.
Right, and you know, it's kind of like okay, so it's a populist message, right?
Yes.
And we can define populism as the idea that government should work to make everyone's lives richer. That should be the role of government, and that anything that government does should be designed to make all of us have better lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of see that in his message. But he also makes an argument earlier in the film about the role of government being basically to get the people out of the way who aren't good for anything else. Mm-hmm. So you promote your village idiot to office or whatever, make him the mayor, dog catcher. Or that's if he's qualified to be the dog catcher. Maybe then you can promote him to something else. And so it's kind of an interesting message because on the one hand, he's very egalitarian in his message of, you know, we should be helping each other out, and this is something that we've kind of lost, and people are falling on hard times, so we need to take care of each other. But he's also saying that government really isn't what should do that. It should be kind of us in general helping each other out, and
actually,
if somebody needs money,
then
of
the sort. He doesn't really differentiate the people from the government.
I'm just. He never goes really into his views on government. We get a little bit about, like, I think it's Social Security when he's talking to the, and Daniel Boone didn't get handouts or anything like that. But he kind of says the only two times he talks about anything like this is at the beginning when he does the dog catcher bit, and then when he says, we should all pitch in and help this lady out. And he's also kind of commenting on the media, I think, too, by using the mouthpiece of television to get people to send in money. But I don't think he's saying, like, the government should be responsible for helping people out. We should be just helping each other out, right?
Yeah.
Which is, well, it's hard to tell whether or not he really means that or if that's just a means to an end to get people to like him. I'm going to do this for you.
Remember, later on he'll go on to say that the people are the people are just like him, but they're stupider, so they're
guinea pigs in a cage. They're guinea pigs in a cage.
Yeah.
And so there's almost, and you said sociopath, but there's almost a bit of he's going to say whatever he thinks people want to hear to get the support that he needs. So he's kind of tapping into this sense of, this is what people want. This is maybe what people are afraid of. This is how he thinks, what people want to hear. And he's going to use that as his message, whether or not he actually believes in it.
Yeah, there's definitely a populist thing. He definitely wants to have people on his side. But the thing is that he doesn't want to follow their trends. He wants them to follow his trends. he wants to lead them. He wants them to follow him. And so there's a bit of a difference. Like when we have, he doesn't want to convince them. He just wants them to follow. We had that whole thing about how, we should have conversations and we should have debates. And it's like, fuck debates. You've got to use trigger words. You need to get an emotional response from them, get them to follow you by giving them no other reason than just to follow you. And that's exactly what he does. It's interesting and it's interesting because we do get the reactions from his audience when he's talking. We see them respond. We see them oohing and on and coming out to see him when he, when he's doing public appearances. We see how much they clamor over him when, he's basically ogling the Miss America. The baton twirlers.
The people who can handle shafts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the director's note apparently for that was he couldn't quite get what to do, and the director came up to him and it's like, I don't think he asks, but the idea was, how do I look at her? And the director leaned in and said, fuck her. And he's like, okay. Yeah. And that's, you go back to that scene and that's the look in his eyes. And like,
well, he's a wolf. I mean,
okay.
That's one of the things I love about what Andy Griffith is doing here. He both has this kind of aw shucks folksiness, but he also has the look of a man who will devour you whole. He does have a wolfish look to him.
He's just gonna grab you. Take what he wants.
Don't do it. Don't say it.
But I'm not wrong, am I?
Oh man, no.
I'm not gonna say the word, but you know what I mean.
Yep. Don't do it, Kent. We're not going there. We're not going there. No one's grabbing nothing, okay?
I was going to start quoting Duran Duran's Hungry Like the Wolf for a second there, but then, yeah, okay.
It's another apt comparison. And again, I mentioned trading in for the younger model.
Mm-hmm.
He constantly is on the lookout for the next ex-Mrs. Rhodes.
He basically begs Patricia Neal to marry him, and she's going to, and then he goes and marries someone else.
Yes.
And he expects her to stay by his side.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's not like he would ever try to... It's not like anyone would ever try to cheat on their pregnant wife. Right? Or at least talk about trying to cheat on their pregnant wife.
Yeah.
Nobody in politics would ever do that.
Ever. No.
Actually, they wait till they have cancer. And
should we remind each other exactly why he was in Mexico to begin with? Because he wasn't exactly unmarried when he proposed.
Right. And his first wife was older. And so then he proposed to a younger model. And then after he proposed to her, he went and married an even younger model.
Yeah. Which, by the way, is Lee Remick, who... Are you familiar with her work? Because she is one of the most underrated actresses of her time. This woman, she's just done some incredible work. The one I really can't wait to talk about at a later point is Anatomy of a Murder. She plays a rape victim that I will never forget. It's one of the most amazing performances that I've seen from the 60s, and bold, very bold for its time. But yeah, she was also the mother in The Omen. There's a few other things, but we'll talk about it when we get to Geek Sheet. But are you familiar with Liam Remick?
The
name sounds familiar.
Yeah, the name is very familiar, and then when he mentioned The Omen, it's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, but that's what happens when you decide to marry a man like that and then cheat on him with his campaign manager.
You give birth to the Antichrist. Wait, no.
Oops.
Oh man.
But, sorry.
This is what they warned me about.
Yes, okay.
But I thought it was also kind of interesting that, I mean, throughout the film, you mentioned that there's a bit of a sexist thing. There's a mistrust of women, definitely. I mean,
I didn't mention that.
I did. Right, there's some misogyny going on.
Well,
not hatred, it's mistrust. It's not hatred.
Well,
There's definitely some. I don't even know how to put it. There's a couple scenes where like there's this really old woman. There's always like an elderly woman who is somehow rooting for Lonesome Rhodes. Like there's like, and then when he leaves for Memphis, there's an older woman like kissing him farewell or something, and that kind of continues through the film.
Well, they kind of set that up when he talks about his mother or doesn't talk about her,
Yeah,
and all the
and there's
uncles.
this kind of thing where it's the old woman is seen as the ultimate gatekeeper of morality, right? Like if you have the elderly woman thinks you're a nice boy, then you're in, like you're set. Like you have to win over their vote in order to be elected. Almost like suburban white women are somehow a swing voting bloc that have to be courted. Oh wait, shoot, I was reading 538 too much. So
okay.
Stop
that. We're not supposed to be reading 538 right now. Go back to
Sorry. But no. I mean, like, there's this kind of this thread through the film where it's fine that, like, men approve or don't approve of him. And I think throughout the film, more women approve of him than men. The men in the film are always kind of, like, leery or wary of him. And it's the women who kind of champion him throughout the film.
Well, I mean,
and even to the point where the director of the television station is ready to kick him off, but there's women outside like protesting for him to stay, to not be kicked off after he takes the dig at the mattresses, and they're like, "Oh, I'll sleep on the floor with you." And then then the guy has to kind of like. His accountant has to reason with him and say, no, like our sales are actually up.
55%.
Like this would be bad to get rid of him. And then so money is the language that men in the film understand, but women are more in tune with the personality and charm. Like they're not wooed by money, but it's his kind of charm that wins them over. So I don't know if it's really a mistrust of women. You could say that the women in the film are naive in that they're kind of taken with him, whereas the men are more likely to believe he's a fraud, which he kind of is, but he also isn't because he was just a hobo. It was the media that kind of made him who he was. You know what I mean? So you can't really fault him for being a fraud. He is who he was.
He was always a fraud.
And he
just was an honest
fraud.
Well,
yeah, but I mean,
he wasn't intending to go this far.
Yeah,
he didn't got that far.
And again, it's like he didn't ask to be thrust into national prominence. He was given the opportunity and he took it, but he wasn't trying to worm his way into the halls of power. It just kind of happened accidentally, and then he took the opportunity. You know what I mean?
No,
like it's almost like he didn't have any ambition himself. He was just kind of handed an inheritance and kind of had like just went where he would with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm trying to say there.
I think you're trying to make a bit of a connection between Rhodes and Trump here.
Oh, is that what I'm doing again? Oh,
Yep.
Guilty.
Yep. But someone's hitting the drinks. All right. But all right, I want to talk about Walter Matthau right quick because I love that he's kind of the balance. He's the guy who really doesn't buy this shit.
I love Walter Matthau in this. So young.
You know,
I didn't recognize him. He's that young.
Yeah.
Was this?
He's a Vanderbilt, 44. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he younger in this than when we saw him in The Odd Couple?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Odd Couple was 60s.
Okay.
But no, this is. You know, he had been doing stuff. You know, he's mostly a theater person up to this point. Most of the people here were in the theater, but Matthau, I love how he both has some nerd cred going on there. I fucking love that. On top of that, he just doesn't buy it. You know, he's nice. You know, he'll eat the shit. He won't like it, but he'll eat it. But you know, when he gets to the point where he just can't take it no more, you know, he'll dish it out. And I love the fact that he's the one who gets to tell off Lonesome at the end. You know, he's the one that gets to drop the mic on him, right? To me, it's like, you know, whenever he talks, we want to listen. We want to hear him because he's kind of the authority. He's the one who kind of knows this game. He knows what's going on. And so we kind of lean towards him as for some sort of sanity in this whole situation, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's enough of him in this film because
I don't want too much of him. I want him to
kind of want it
proper time
to have him be the counterpoint is, I think, effective because you do get so caught up in
the craziness.
Yeah, you get caught up in Lonesome Rhodes' personality. And yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe there's just the right amount of Walter Matthau in this. But who's the guy that you find out is the 51% stakeholder?
Oh, that's his manager. I forgot the guy's name.
When did he come in?
He was the guy who got the deal for New York. Remember, he was in Memphis. He was the one who, as soon as the whole mattress thing blew up, he got New York on the line and started a bidding war.
Okay. And then he got 51%?
Yeah, that was during that whole transition from, the montage for the height of power. You know, look.
Interesting.
It keeps going up. It keeps going up.
Going up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That which is just weird. It's like,
again,
what are you measuring
more
exactly?
Vitajex propositions.
Yeah.
Listen, that's what it's going to take. You need more Vitajex.
Oh, man. But no, I just, you know, the way that Walter Matthau comes in, I don't want too much of him because it's not between him and Walter Matthau. Between those two characters, it's really about Lonesome and the destructive past that he is forging for himself and for those around him. You know, especially when it comes to Patrice Neal, that relationship need to be more stronger. That's the relationship that was more important. I love the fact that it really doesn't start off as a relationship. He makes it into a relationship. He plays her towards a relationship, and that she kind of falls into it, and then she's devastated to the point that she accepts that, you know, that he's not hers. But I love the fact that when she realized just as how much she's played him, and that it plays towards the end of the film and what she does, which again I think is just brilliant. I love these kinds of reveals. The same thing with Singing in the Rain, where you have someone that just brings back the curtain, you know, to go back to the Wizard of Oz, you know, to pulls back the curtain and we see, you know, what's really happening and people realizing that they've been played. It works here, right? I mean, just the way that it all kind of builds to that with these characters and the way that they're responding to Lonesome, right?
Everybody kind of abandons him. I feel bad for him. Oh wait, no, I don't.
It's
fair. He made his own.
And again, the people he thinks are his friends
did abandon him. They did screw him over.
Well, they had Rip Torn in the wings. I mean...
Well, yeah. Okay, you got Rip Torn. Yeah, okay.
There's kind of this thing, and again, I don't want to keep bringing up the 2016 election, but we have seen again and again people like, okay, this is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and this person is going to lose all of his support. Like this is going to be a bridge too far, and no one is going to stick with this guy. And the exact thing has happened. The exact thing where you had an inadvertently recorded diatribe end up on air.
That was 2012.
The
inadvertent diagram.
The
inadvertent
47%. Yeah, 48%. That happened to Mitt Romney.
Yes.
And it also happened with Trump, where he was on tape talking about, again, we said grabbing, and there was a whole thing with that.
No, that actually endears him to some people.
Bizarrely,
the thing is, Rhodes flat out says everybody that follows me is dumb.
If people completely abandon Rhodes or not, it ends that night. We don't know what the real aftermath is.
And that's kind of the point, because you're left thinking he's done. This is it. Like this,
because
this
Matthau
has to be
the
end for this guy.
You're not
going to
over.
get a show.
There will be a show. You might not be as powerful as you were tonight, but you will get a show. There'll be people that'll follow
you can launch your internet channel and do that instead. Oh wait, that
I think Sarah Palin. Anybody?
No.
I mean, she got a reality show, but
the theory that Trump will buy Twitter.
Yeah,
be afraid.
That's another. But so there's this moment in the film that we have literally seen play out in the 2016 election, where something has happened. A candidate has said something that you, as a rational person, think, okay, there's no way anyone can support him after this. Like how can anyone say, okay, this person should be a candidate for president? There's no way. Like either their party will abandon them, or their base will abandon them, or enough voters will say, there's no way, and they'll start polling in the tank, and that'll be that. And yet we're headed into election day 2 days from now with within the margin of error, the national polls.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, maybe in 1950 where people's sensibilities were a little bit more refined or something, this would spell the end of somebody's career. Now, maybe not so much.
Well, it's what I like to think of as the Wile E. Coyote effect. As long as you don't look down, you can keep going.
Yeah.
It's not that, again, I don't want to get too much into the current thing, but even when it comes to Lonesome, as long as he doesn't fully admit, and let's be honest here, especially considering that he's playing to an empty room by the last time we see him, there will be people that will defiantly stand with him simply because, because they don't want to think that he's wrong. They don't want to think that what he has to say is that cynical. They'll make excuses for what he said. The excuses that he said about, I'll just say that I just put it out there just to see if you were listening. That'll actually work.
Yeah.
And
aren't there
I meant that as a joke. The Second Amendment people. Oh well.
Yeah.
I meant that as. And there's been a lot of that. There's been a fair amount of, I guess the term now is gaslighting, which is is a reference to another old movie.
I didn't say that.
You
imagined it.
It would be kind of a fun movie to talk about too.
We're gonna
in
get
this
to
sequence.
Gaslight. We will get Gaslight.
But at the same time, there's a moment in the film that reminded me of Anchorman, where they say, Ron Burgundy will read anything off the teleprompter, anything, and so then you get the go bleep yourself San Diego moment. And then you kind of find out that he can't do his show without Marcia there. But at the same time, I don't feel like they earn that because...
Oh, no, he does do the show without her. The thing is, though, is that he's so flustered that he...
That's when he has his
breakdown.
His hot mic moment. Well, I think it's by the same token, you see him at the beginning of the movie. He's best when he's improvising. When he shows up for the first TV show and he doesn't follow their script and he just kind of does his own thing. And then I guess as the film goes on, he becomes more and more reliant on that crutch and loses some of that creativity and improvisational talent that he had. So now that he doesn't have his...
Yeah,
he dresses like them. He talks like them. He drinks like them.
I respect...
He sleeps around like them.
Yeah, I respect him more when he is improvising. Even if I don't agree with it, you can tell he's when he turns to TV and goes, "This is what it looks like." That has to be magic to a 50s audience. It's like, that happened? Oh, wow.
He breaks the fourth wall and somehow reinvents the genre.
Yeah. And people trust him for it.
Is that his that's his Deadpool moment, I think.
Okay. All right, gentlemen. So at this point, was there anything else we want to bring up? I know that we kind of got through most of the things that I thought we'd be talking about.
I still like the fan theory that he is the sheriff of
Mayberry.
That's
he reinvents himself later on.
He reinvents himself. He says, "Okay, I'm just going to hang out. I'm going to be in a small town, and that'll be my power."
Does that mean Opie is the child he had? No, wait.
We never meet Opie's mom. She quote unquote died before the beginning of the show, so we don't know. But that does mean that Ron Howard could direct the sequel.
Dun dun dun.
Okay. I know I don't want to say anything more about 2016, but do you think that this is going to prompt a remake or a revisit to this type of story?
It would have been remade already before
they already did remake it. It was called Network. Oh. And we will eventually get to Network.
Okay.
But no, there are movies that have this same kind of slant,
man of the people
on the media. This look at politics and the effect of media on viewers and their skew of events through these particular slants. Another one that I mentioned when we were talking about Sunset Boulevard, Ace in the Hole. Another film by a filmmaker who had just come off of the most strongest film he ever made to a film that startled Americans so much they didn't want to see it. Just like this one, where he had come off of On the Waterfront, which won the Academy Award, and no one wanted to see this. This terrified Americans, and so now it's this is something you have to actually actively hunt down to find. When it wasn't on Turner Classic Movies last month, apparently I didn't even realize. But this is a film that Spike Lee openly says is one of his all-time favorite films. This is a film that Martin Scorsese uses as an example of pacing and great pacing of films. I personally agree with him on that one.
Francois Truffaut was one of the original,
defenders, one of the initial
defenders of it when it first came out.
And
again, this received mixed reviews, and a lot of people appreciated Griffith's performance, but
Well, I think people were upset at the director, and they were probably also scared of, we can't support this film because it makes some people look bad, McCarthy. Even if he's already been discredited, it's still, there's Washington power going on.
But the thing is that we're supposed to, that we're allowed to have a little sympathy for the devil. That's something I think is quite interesting here. It's not that we're just...
Well, and there's a line of wish fulfillment that goes along with this too, because I mean, how many of us wouldn't love to be thrust into fame and fortune?
Well,
and the kind of question that you have to ask yourself is, I think that just magnifies whatever you were before. It just magnifies it times a million, right? So he was probably always a power-hungry jerk, but he was a hobo, so he was kind of a small power-hungry jerk, whereas that just gets magnified 100 times once he actually has money and power and influence to wield.
So basically, the TV camera does to the ego what the flash camera does to your image. It expands that ego.
Camera adds 10 pounds or makes you 10 times
the
the
imperfections.
jerk.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do some Geek Sheet right quick. I know that we've tackled quite a bit of it, but thought that
there are a number of cameos in this where we get people that you know from other things. We get Faye Emerson, Betty Furness, Virginia Graham, Burl Ives, Mitch Miller, John Cameron Swayze, Mike Wallace, Wilson,
that was
Walter
the
Winchell.
one
that was weird. He looked so young.
Right, because he's
holy shit! He was ever that age? What?
I love the fact that they actually had actual journalists. This was the first time that we saw journalists kind of attacking a fictional character in a film.
Yeah.
So again, it gives it that sense of realism. When you have Walter Winchell, who, just has 3 minutes of just shit talking this guy, right? Just talking about, and basically saying, this is the end of Western civilization, this guy. I mean, just imagine. I mean, this would be like if the
McCulkin group showed up during an alien invasion. Oh, wait.
This would be like if Chuck Todd, started talking about, spent 3 minutes or maybe the 10 minutes of a House of Cards episode, just shit talking Frank Underwood.
Huh.
That's, it gives you that sense of realism. It definitely puts that, gives it that extra sense of this is something that's happening.
Well,
right now.
I mean, we couldn't have Larry King in this one, I guess.
Well, I don't know if he was on TV. In fact, I think he might have been in grade school at the time.
Yeah.
But what if you had news reporter Ronald Reagan?
Oh,
Right.
That would have been.
I still
think that Ronald Reagan
would
would work for
Ronald
a commie.
Reagan.
I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. No.
But all right, so Patrice Neal, we have to bring up that she was in The Day the Earth Stood Still. Otherwise, we wouldn't be proper geeks in that sense. Walter Matthau, one of the grumpy old men. Personally, I love talking about him in a little movie called Charade with Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn, and one of the most badass 70s films of all time, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. Give or take the sequel, the remake, I still say the original is awesome.
I was going to say which remake, but I'm like, wait.
Well, no, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 in the 70s. 3. It had Walter Matthau in the Denzel part, and you had Robert Shaw as the bad guy.
I forgot. In my head, I got Pelham 1, 2, 3 confused with Assault on Precinct.
Precinct 1, 2, 3? I'm kidding.
Yeah. But which is also the joke is Ghost of Mars is a remake of that, and that was a joke among people I know. So it's like he keeps remaking it. Okay. Anyway, where were we?
Yeah.
Rip Torn. Yes, he's a man in black. Next.
What?
Go ahead.
Okay.
No, I was gonna
say what.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was gonna say what. What do you think Lonesome Rhodes would have done with Twitter?
I was gonna say a couple years ago.
I say that he would have been more of an Instagram man myself.
True.
Vine would have been his
Vine,
thing.
yes. A couple years ago, Sweden, the nation, the actual nation of Sweden, did a thing where almost for a year, they may still be doing it, I'm not sure, where they would give their Twitter account away to a random citizen.
Uh-huh.
And that kind of sounds like a bit about this movie. If somebody got... It kind of went awry when they gave it to somebody who was kind of had a neo-Nazi stuff going and would tweet it on the official Sweden account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then
they
turned
held
out to be super popular.
Yeah. But they held to their guns. The week was over. The person gave it up, handed it to the next person, and just continued. But it's still like, wow, that's odd. But somebody could get their own fame just with that.
Sure.
You could almost remake this movie as, instead of getting discovered on radio, he gets discovered on Twitter because some major thing passes their account to a lucky person every week.
Yeah.
So, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna Vine, Instagram, Facebook Live myself. Mm-hmm. Look how homey I am. Oh, give him his own show. Give him his own YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. Fully stocked. There's some people on Facebook that are famous. I'm like, how did this person get this way? Because they have a budget. Look at that set. There's a budget.
Yeah, and with YouTube and the whole thing now, it kind of like it lends a whole other aspect to what a remake of this could do. So and we've seen people who have started as YouTube or Twitter celebrities or bloggers become major media personalities and kingmakers in their own right, in terms of people that have gone on to work for political campaigns or media groups and get movies made. It's kind of nuts. Like even some podcasters have risen to interesting heights in their media careers. If you stay up and watch The Walking Dead after we record, you might see one of them hosting an after show. So, it's interesting. It's just interesting where you could go with a remake of A Face in the Crowd, or how you could continue to kind of play with these ideas.
Are you casting Chris Hardwick in the role of...
I'm not casting him in the role. I'm saying
but that would be interesting.
You could do a prototypical kind of thing where, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube channel or something like that, and if you get enough upvotes, who knows? Black Mirror should. They did. They did an episode where they did a cartoon character who ran for parliament.
Yeah. So it's just
oh my god!
All right, so let's go ahead and let's call it, gentlemen. Ready?
All
right.
Sure.
I'm ready.
Kent.
Ready, set, go.
Bonus points if you do it as a blues song.
Kent, Lobster, do you agree with the critics now on... Sorry. I'm like my brain. All right. Kent, Lobster, do you agree now with the critics on A Face in the Crowd? Do you give it a pass? Do you give it a fail? Or do you give it a maybe? Lobster.
I've been thinking about a man who laughs so loud. I've been thinking about a man who laughs so loud. I think he was the star of a movie called A Face in the Crowd. And that man is Andy Griffith. And what an introduction for Andy Griffith to Arthouse legends. I really, really enjoyed watching this movie, not only for the surreal, bizarro connections to our current election cycle and the current state of politics, but also as kind of a meditation on power and corruption and what the lens of television and radio, or I guess you could say in popular terms, the media, what that does to a person and what that can magnify and reveal about someone's character. I thought that this movie, for something that's coming out of maybe the Red Scare and the idea of what the way in which art and media has become a mouthpiece for political will, but also from kind of a reassertion of the popularism and almost a continuation of some Depression era ideals and thinking that this kind of draws on. I found it really fun to watch, and really I think the standout is Andy Griffith's performance and the way that he inhabits that character. And certainly if you think of him as the benevolent sheriff or the benevolent lawyer, or kind of your ideal Andy Griffith is kind of just a nice guy, this is not him. And it's really kind of fun to see that and watch that process. So I would hate to have been on set with him if he did stay in character. We've heard tales recently of method actors doing similar things, and it's just not fun for anybody. So, but again, I think give this film a chance, especially now. It's worth a look. Pass for me.
Kent.
Oddly, I want to give a chance to the people 6 months ago who were voting in primaries and make them watch this movie and say, are you sure before you hit that vote button? Are you sure? It seems like it's too timely about the 2016 election, but in some ways it could mirror other elections going on. We have a local race that the candidate is for a congressional seat, that the candidate isn't quite this character, but sort of is. I mean, he got his name out there, and then after he got the nomination, it was, wait a minute, you live in a hotel, you're divorced, you really don't have a permanent address? What? Not is probably not going to win, but sort of mirrors it in a way, too, on a smaller scale. So we have small scale and big scale. This movie needs to be seen by anyone that's ever planning, I think, to vote. So it's not for everyone, because some people just don't vote. Dummies. Yes, I said dummies to people who don't vote. This should be... Yeah, it's a complete pass. I'm trying not to get onto a rant or a tangent or
rant.
No,
rant.
I resist the call of the rant. The rant will not control me. Okay, the dark side of the rant is no. Okay, but yeah, it's wait. I don't know if it's being prophetic or if it's just and all this has happened before will happen again situation.
Yeah,
where it's like,
I think in some way it's dealing with universal truths.
Yeah,
and it's why Idiocracy. It's why this. It's why it happened.
I still haven't seen Idiocracy. Shh. Okay.
Depending on the outcome of the election, we do have a little bit of leeway for that.
Okay.
All right.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm done with my thing, so, yeah, Eric.
All right, well,
I think I know what you're saying.
It's interesting that you brought up about Andy Griffith and elections, but did you know that in 2008, one particular Mayberry sheriff, along with his director's son, had done a little video to encourage people to vote for a certain Illinois senator.
I think I recall seeing that at the time.
Well, technically, this had nothing to do with the film that we're talking about. Although, again, it would be something I would see Lonesome Rhodes doing if it were him. Although I don't know if it had been for that particular congressman that he would have been doing it for.
No.
But all the same, though, this film is just brilliant. I love this film. This film was startling to me when I saw it 10 years ago. It's still startling to me today. When I watched it for this viewing, this is like the fourth time I've seen this film, I was like, I can't wait to find out what you two thought about this film. I was so eager for this conversation. I can't say just how much. And this is one of those movies that, when people ask about political movies or movies that talk about politics or the state of affairs, I point to this movie. This is a movie that I is my go-to when it comes to this type of thing. This and Ace in the Hole and Network all are so prophetic in the media and the strange relationship between the media and politics, specifically how names inside the media can build themselves off of these bullshit premises, and that America has a tendency of just allowing it to happen because, yeah. But that said, this is just a genuinely great film. It's compelling. The acting is just on par. And one more time, what the fuck, Academy? What the fuck? Seriously.
Rigged. It's a rigged system.
Yeah.
It's not fair. It's just totally rigged.
I was, after watching this movie the first time, I was so mad that Andy Griffith didn't get an Academy Award nomination. I was just like, but, just imagine all of these great films that he could have done. He could have been one of the greatest actors of all time. And then I said, wait a second, hold on. He traded this in to become one of the most beloved TV icons of all time. Like, okay, he did pretty well for himself.
I think he made the right career move. You can make a name for yourself playing the villain, but you can make a career for yourself playing the hero.
Yeah. I mean, this is this is a perfect role, and this will always be there. But again, he was great, and I loved him on TV, and I still love him even today for because the shows were good, and he was always such a beloved figure. So. Yeah, this is one of the things where I have no problem with this being his one and only truly great theatrical film. It's perfect. This is one, like I said, one of the 10 best performances of all time. And if you push me hard enough, I might actually go ahead and list what I consider the 10 great performances of all time. But this is definitely up there. Pass, absolutely. See this movie. I don't care if it's election year or not. If you just want to see a really good, compelling drama, look no further. Although you probably have to look on Amazon because that's all the place you're going to find it.
I found it at the library.
Yes, I found it at the library too. So.
All right. Well, then
it was in the classics section. So
apparently, I am behind. So. Anyway, gentlemen, we are not done yet on this election, even though this election is done with us.
Please, can we be done? What's that? Is it done with us?
Yes, it is done with us, but we're not done with it because we have one more movie to go. And
so what you're saying is there's a recount.
Yeah, there's always a recount.
Let's hope not.
There will never be not a recount.
No, gentlemen, we do have a spy among us. In fact, we actually will be having one among us, as we will have a special guest joining us for a conversation about the Queen of Hearts, of all things.
Nice.
So, yes, we're talking Frank Sinatra. We're talking Angela Lansbury making her first time on this show. Interesting. We had Matt. Now we have now we have Jessica Fletcher. So we're just hitting them all this month. But yes, we're talking about The Manchurian Candidate, 1960. I can't wait to talk about this with you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me. But at this point, if you want to give us a 5-star review on iTunes, we'll certainly take a thank you for that. Or if you just want to send us a little notification about what you thought about this show, we're on Facebook where you can post your opinions there, or you can visit us on Twitter at Arthouse Legends. And of course, you just want to be the quiet type and just send us a direct response. Our email address is arthouselegends@gmail.com. Don't forget, it is that time for the requests for the pick on January. Your choice. What are we going to be talking about? Let us know. We want to hear from you. Anything else we want to bring up?
I'd say vote, but this episode won't come out till the day after the election.
We hope that you went out and voted. We hope that you made your voice heard. It's an important thing. I did get on my soapbox in the last episode about that. I'll say it again, that it's one of those things that makes this country great, is that you get a voice, you get to be heard, and everybody, regardless of which candidate you vote for, make an informed choice, make a choice that you agree with, and go out and do the right thing.
And remember, 2018 midterm elections countdown begins the day after election.
Well, first I need to go take my vital checks.
I have a very, very strong sense that the 2020 election is going to start the day after this election, because either way, a lot of people are going to be unhappy, and whether or not anything gets done, whether or not anything gets done in government for the next 4 years, we shall see.
All right. Well, this is the MovieDude Eric.
And this is Kent.
And this is John Lobster.
And Fiend.